Chapter 2, The Metaphysical Tapestry of Panentheism. Beyond classical limitations, classical theism has long provided a framework for understanding the divine, shaping much of Western thought and religious practice. Its foundational tenets, however, particularly concerning the nature of God's perfection and unchangeableness, have increasingly come under scrutiny. While seemingly straightforward, these concepts, when pressed, reveal ambiguities and philosophical pitfalls that have inadvertently fueled skepticism and theological discord. It's precisely at this juncture that panentheism emerges as a compelling alternative, offering a more nuanced and dynamic understanding of the divine reality, one that can reconcile traditional spiritual insights with modern scientific understanding. Re-evaluating divine perfection, the classical conundrum. At the heart of classical theological discourse lies the assertion that God is perfect and unchanging, a cornerstone of divine attributes, positing a being utterly complete, lacking nothing, and therefore immutable. Yet, a closer examination reveals inherent tensions within this definition when juxtaposed with the very act of creation. If God is perfect, in the sense of being completely made or finished, what then does it imply about God's ongoing role as the maker and creator of all? How could an already finished entity engage in the dynamic, unfolding process of creation? This precise dilemma is eloquently articulated by Charles Hartshorne in his provocative work, Omnipotence and Other Theological Mistakes. Hartshorne challenges the very language used to describe the divine, asserting, "What went wrong in classical theism? Two meanings of God is perfect and unchanging." The word perfect literally means completely made or finished. But God is conceived as the maker and creator of all, so what could have made God, whether or not the making was properly completed? Perfect seems a poor word to describe the divine reality. To describe something not perfect seems a criticism and implies fault-finding. The simple conclusion from the foregoing, and still other lines of reasoning, is that the traditional idea of divine perfection or infinity is hopelessly unclear or ambiguous, and that persisting in that tradition is bound to cause increasing skepticism, confusion, and human suffering. It has long bred and must evermore breed atheism as a natural reacti one on. Hartshorne's critique strikes at the core of the issue. The word perfect, in its common usage, suggests a completed state, a finality. If God is truly the ultimate origin and sustainer of all existence, the very notion of God being made or finished presents a logical inconsistency. Furthermore, the binary implied by perfect, where anything less is imperfect and thus flawed, creates a theological straitjacket. It forces a view of God that is static and potentially aloof from the dynamic, often chaotic, reality of creation. The argument is compelling. Clinging to an ambiguous and conceptually problematic definition of divine perfection inevitably leads to increasing skepticism. As minds grapple with these inconsistencies, the traditional model struggles to offer satisfying answers, resulting in confusion and, for many, a natural gravitation towards atheism as a perceived escape from untenable theological propositions. This highlights the urgent need for a theological framework that can transcend these limitations, offering a more robust and coherent understanding of God's relationship with a perpetually unfolding universe. 2. Introducing metaphysical theology, the path to a living universe. To move beyond the impasses of classical theism and truly grasp the intricate relationship between the divine, consciousness, and the cosmos, we must embrace a broader conceptual framework, metaphysical theology. This approach isn't merely a subset of traditional theology but represents a necessary reintegration of theological inquiry with the foundational questions of metaphysics, the study of the fundamental nature of reality and the insights of modern science. Historically, theology became tragically ostracized and divorced from metaphysics, a separation mirrored in many ways by science's own disengagement from deeper philosophical grounding. The result has been fragmentation and discord, where disciplines, inherently intertwined by the very fabric of existence, operate in isolation, leading to incomplete understandings of reality. Metaphysical theology proposes that both theology and science, whether acknowledged or not, inherently require metaphysics to fully function as the divine hand has designed. Without a coherent metaphysical undergirding, theological concepts become abstract doctrines divorced from lived experience, and scientific discoveries risk being reduced to mere empirical observations lacking deeper meaning or interconnectedness. Our aim, therefore, is to utilize metaphysical theology as the essential lens through which we explore panentheistic concepts, emphasizing its profound connection to the very nature of reality as a Hylozoic universe. A Hylozoic universe is one understood as being living or animated throughout. In this view, matter isn't inert but imbued with spirit or life. This naturally leads to the concept of panpsychism, the philosophical view that mind or consciousness, in some rudimentary form, is a fundamental and ubiquitous feature of all reality. Rather than consciousness being an emergent property arising solely from complex brains, panpsychism posits that it's inherent in matter itself, down to the most basic particles. Metaphysical theology, particularly when aligned with panentheism, provides the perfect philosophical soil for such a conception. It posits a universe where divinity isn't merely a distant architect but is intimately present, permeating and animating all existence. God is the very life force and consciousness within all things, the underlying sentience that gives rise to and sustains the cosmos. This perspective stands in stark contrast to deistic views, where God is a detached clockmaker, or purely materialistic views, which reduce reality to unfeeling, unconscious matter. Instead, metaphysical theology, through the panentheistic lens, invites us to perceive the cosmos as a vibrant, living organism, in which every particle and every being participates in the divine flow of consciousness. This reunification of spirit and matter, of theology and metaphysics, isn't an academic exercise but a crucial step towards healing the intellectual and spiritual fragmentation that has plagued human understanding for centuries. 3. The diverse expressions of panentheism. Panentheism, meaning all in God, represents a theological understanding that avoids the pitfalls of both classical theism, God entirely separate from the world, and pantheism, God identical with the world. Instead, it posits that God is greater than the universe and transcends it, yet the universe is contained within God. This core idea, however, manifests in a rich tapestry of variations, each emphasizing different aspects of this intricate divine-cosmic relationship. Understanding these nuances is crucial for appreciating the depth and adaptability of the panentheistic worldview. Here are some of the key variations of panentheism. Classical panentheism. This foundational form holds that God is distinct from the world, much like a mind is distinct from the body it inhabits, yet the world exists within God. God isn't exhausted by the world and retains a transcendent aspect beyond creation. Process panentheism, heavily influenced by the philosophy of Alfred North Whitehead and Charles Hartshorne, this variation emphasizes God's dynamic and evolving nature. God is continuously developing and experiencing the world, influencing and being influenced by the myriad events within creation. This relationship is one of mutual transformation and co-creation. Dialectical panentheism. This approach highlights the dynamic and often paradoxical relationship between God and the world. It emphasizes their distinction yet also their profound interdependence, suggesting a constant interplay of forces and a resolution of seeming contradictions within the divine whole. Consciousness/idealist panentheism, often found in Eastern philosophies and some Western idealist traditions, this view posits the world as an emanation or manifestation of a divine consciousness. Reality is ultimately mental or spiritual, and the cosmos exists as a thought or dream within the divine mind. Naturalistic panentheism. In this variation, God isn't necessarily a personal or transcendent deity in the traditional sense, but is identified with the fundamental laws, processes, and emergent complexity of nature itself. While bordering on pantheism, it maintains a subtle distinction, suggesting that the divine is the holistic, interconnected system of the universe, which is still within a broader, indefinable reality. Spinozan panentheism, or substantial panentheism. While often classified as pantheistic, Baruch Spinoza's concept of God as the one substance can be interpreted panentheistically. All reality exists in the substance, but the substance itself, with its infinite attributes, is ultimately more than just the sum total of its modes, the finite things we perceive. Cosmic panentheism, this variation focuses on the overwhelming immanence of God within the vastness and ongoing evolution of the cosmos. It emphasizes the divine presence in galaxies, stars, planets, and the grand sweep of cosmic history, seeing the universe as a living expression of God's unfolding being. Emergent panentheism, this view proposes that God emerges or is realized through the complex interactions, increasing organization, and development within the universe. God is not only the ground of being but also the ultimate outcome of cosmic evolution, becoming more fully present as creation unfolds. Conjoined panentheism, this proposed variation emphasizes a model where distinct divine and worldly aspects are not merely contained but are actively and integrally intertwined and codependent. It posits an inseparable yet non-identical nature, suggesting a dynamic reciprocal relationship where God and creation mutually shape and inform each other. This model offers particular promise for reconciling seemingly disparate paradigms in science, as we will explore. Eschatological panentheism, this variation focuses on the ultimate destiny of the cosmos and humanity as being deeply intertwined with God's ongoing process of self-realization and becoming, leading to a culmination within the divine. It is a future-oriented panentheism, seeing the end times not as a destruction, but as a perfecting and deepening integration of creation into God. This vision finds remarkable convergence with the closing chapters of the biblical book of Revelation, particularly in the description of a new heaven and a new earth. The passage explicitly speaks to a forthcoming reality where divine and created realms achieve a profoundly conjoined relationship, moving beyond any previous separation. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look! God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life." Revelation 21:1-6 NIV, this powerful imagery of God's dwelling place now among the people, with the holy city descending to earth, speaks not of an escape from creation, but of a profound spiritualizing and integrating of creation into God's very presence. This scriptural vision converges perfectly with Teilhard de Chardin's notion of the omega point. For Teilhard, the omega point represents the ultimate culmination of cosmic evolution, a point of maximum complexity and consciousness where all reality converges in Christ, who is simultaneously the driving force and the final goal of evolution. This isn't an absorption into an undifferentiated void, but a highly integrated, personal, and perfected union within the divine. The declaration "I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end" within the Revelation passage further reinforces this idea of divine comprehensive reality, encompassing all beginnings and all ends within its eternal being. Furthermore, from an eschatological panentheistic perspective, biblical prophecy, and indeed all prophecies, shouldn't be viewed as mere linear predictions of a predetermined future. In a process universe, where time is nuanced and continually unfolding, prophecy can be understood as revealing all potential futures, the various trajectories that creation, under divine lure and human freedom, might take. This aligns with many ancient cultures and mystical traditions that perceive time not just as linear, but also as cyclical. Prophecies in these contexts often speak to recurring patterns of spiritual development, cycles of decline and renewal, and archetypal transformations that manifest across different epochs. The new heaven and earth then becomes not just a singular event in a distant future, but a perpetual possibility, a recurring pattern of divine cosmic integration towards which reality is always drawn. Philip Clayton, a prominent figure in process theology, has significantly expounded upon eschatological panentheism, demonstrating how a dynamic, relational God actively participates in the future of creation, working towards a perfected cosmos that finds its ultimate home within the divine life. For a nuanced model, panentheism as a bridge for science and theology, the inherent flexibility and comprehensiveness of panentheism present a unique opportunity to construct a more nuanced theological model, one capable of bridging the historical chasm between scientific understanding and spiritual insight. Classical theism, with its often static view of God, struggles to fully accommodate the dynamic discoveries of modern science, particularly the fluid and interconnected nature of reality revealed by quantum mechanics. Panentheism, however, offers a fertile ground for synergy, especially when explored in conjunction with complex theism models that move beyond simplistic notions of God towards more intricate, relational, and evolving divine attributes. Complex theism, by its very nature, often incorporates aspects of process thought or other non-classical approaches to God's nature, acknowledging a divine being that is intimately involved with, and potentially responsive to, creation. When fused with panentheism, this creates a powerful framework where God is understood as both transcendent, the ultimate ground and encompasser of all, and immanent, the animating presence within all. This duality allows for a holistic understanding of reality that can uniquely reconcile two seemingly contradictory pillars of modern physics, classical mechanics and quantum mechanics. Classical mechanics, with its emphasis on predictable laws, deterministic outcomes, and discrete, observable entities, describes the macroscopic world we experience daily. It portrays a universe of order, structure, and measurable interactions. From a panentheistic perspective, this ordered reality can be seen as an expression of God's overarching design, the stable container or framework within which creation unfolds. It is the discernible pattern of the divine presence, giving form and regularity to the cosmos. Quantum mechanics, conversely, delves into the subatomic realm, revealing a universe of probabilities, interconnectedness, non-locality, and a fundamental fuzziness where observation influences reality. It speaks to a deeper, more fluid, and participatory existence, where discrete particles emerge from fields of potential. Here, panentheism offers a profound interpretative lens. The interconnectedness at the quantum level, the way particles seem to know about each other instantaneously, can be viewed as the direct manifestation of God's pervasive immanence. God isn't just the container, but the very fabric of existence, the underlying unity from which all quantum phenomena emerge. Crucially, it is at this quantum level of reality that many philosophers, theologians, and even some physicists draw intriguing connections to the concept of spirit. The unseen, probabilistic, and fundamentally relational nature of quantum phenomena, where entities exist as potentials until observed, and where entanglement suggests non-local connections, resonates deeply with traditional notions of a pervasive spirit that underlies and animates all physical manifestation. This spirit is often conceived as intangible, everywhere present, and the source of life and consciousness. Just as quantum fields are unseen yet give rise to all particles, so too can the divine spirit be seen as the invisible ground from which all creation emerges. This convergence of ideas in philosophy, theology, and cutting-edge physics provides a powerful argument against a purely materialistic worldview, suggesting that the unseen is not merely empty space, but a vibrant, active dimension of reality, intrinsically linked to the divine consciousness of a panentheistic God. The dynamic, unpredictable nature of quantum reality, far from being chaotic, might represent the ceaseless, creative activity of the divine within the universe, a constant process of actualization and new becoming. Therefore, panentheism, particularly through the concept of conjoined panentheism, offers a sophisticated philosophical framework that can conceptually bridge these two scientific paradigms into a whole truth. It allows us to see both the classical, ordered universe and the quantum, probabilistic universe not as opposing realities, but as complementary expressions of a single, deeper, holistic divine reality. The universe, in all its complexity, is seen as continually held, animated, and ultimately transformed within the divine life, providing a cohesive narrative for science and theology to converge. Harmony in opposites, the yin and yang of panentheism. To further illustrate the elegant balance inherent in panentheism, one need look no further than the ancient Chinese symbol of yin and yang. This iconic depiction, a circle divided by a sinuous line into two swirling halves, one black with a white dot, the other white with a black dot, is a powerful representation of harmony, balance, and the dynamic interplay of complementary, seemingly opposite forces. It speaks to the idea that light requires dark, male requires female, activity requires passivity, and that within each extreme lies the seed of its opposite, indicating their inherent interconnectedness and perpetual transformation. This profound symbol of cosmic harmony is precisely what panentheism achieves in philosophical and theological language. Panentheism, by asserting that God is both transcendent and immanent, embodies the very essence of the harmony of opposites. God is greater than the universe and distinct from it, the white half, yet the universe exists within God, the black dot within the white, representing the universe's presence in God's transcendence. Simultaneously, God is intimately present within the universe, animating and sustaining all things, the black half, yet God is not exhausted or limited by this immanence, the white dot within the black, representing God's transcendence even in immanence. This dynamic equilibrium stands in stark contrast to theological models that emphasize imbalance or disharmony. A purely transcendent God, for instance, risks becoming an aloof, distant deity, leading to a disconnect between the divine and human experience, and creating a sense of God being outside the suffering and beauty of the world. Conversely, a purely pantheistic view, where God is merely identical with the universe, risks losing the transcendent aspect, making it difficult to conceive of divine purpose, ultimate meaning, or a reality beyond the immediate physical cosmos. Panentheism, like the yin and yang, provides a definite and obvious pattern in the harmony of opposites rather than the imbalance and disharmony. It offers a continuous flow between the divine and the created, ensuring that God is neither so far removed as to be irrelevant nor so merged as to lose distinctiveness. It allows for God to be personal and relational, yet also the all-encompassing reality. This theological framework mirrors the natural order perceived in the universe, a constant interplay of forces that, in their dynamic tension, create a beautiful, ever-evolving whole. 6 Universal echoes. Panentheism across traditions. One of the most compelling arguments for the intuitive truth of a panentheistic worldview lies in its pervasive presence across diverse spiritual and philosophical traditions, both ancient and modern, Eastern and Western, mystical and esoteric. This recurrence, as if by inherent design or a pre-programmed wisdom, suggests a deeper, perhaps divinely planned, insight into the nature of reality, readily accessible to a higher intelligence within humanity's collective spiritual heritage. In Eastern traditions, panentheistic concepts are profoundly embedded. Certain schools of Hinduism, particularly Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, qualified non-dualism, posit that Brahman, the ultimate reality/God, is the supreme soul, and all individual souls and matter are modes or attributes of Brahman, existing within him, yet distinct. Taoism, with its emphasis on the pervasive Tao as the underlying principle of all existence, often describes a reality that is both transcendent and immanent, flowing through and animating all things. Even certain forms of Mahayana Buddhism, particularly those emphasizing the concept of emptiness, sunyata, not as nothingness but as the interconnected, interdependent nature of all phenomena, can be interpreted as having panentheistic undertones, where all arises from and returns to a pervasive ground of being. Within Western traditions, while classical theism has been dominant, panentheistic streams have consistently emerged. Neoplatonism, with its concept of the one emanating all of reality in descending levels of being, yet remaining the ultimate source and goal of all existence, certainly carries strong panentheistic leanings. Christian mystics throughout history, such as Meister Eckhart, Hildegard von Bingen, and Julian of Norwich, frequently expressed experiences of God's profound immanence, seeing God in all things and all things in God, often blurring the lines of classical separation. The esoteric tradition of Kabbalah within Judaism describes God, Ein Sof, as manifesting through 10 Sephirot, creating and pervading the cosmos, yet remaining infinitely beyond. Similarly, Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, often speaks of the unity of being, Wadat al-Wujud, where God is the sole reality and all existence is a manifestation of the divine, with the world existing within God. Beyond formal religious doctrines, mystical and esoteric traditions globally consistently echo panentheistic sentiments. Hermeticism, with its famous dictum as above, so below, implies a fundamental interconnectedness where the microcosm mirrors the macrocosm, and the divine pervades every level of reality. Alchemy, often misunderstood as merely proto-chemistry, was a spiritual path seeking to transform base matter into gold, symbolically aspiring to realize the divine spirit within material existence. Even some aspects of Gnosticism, despite their varied and often complex cosmologies, often speak of a divine spark within humanity and a cosmic reality that is ultimately a reflection or emanation of a supreme, transcendent, yet intimately involved, divine source. The undeniable pattern of these convergent spiritual insights across vastly different cultures and epochs points to something more than mere coincidence. It suggests that the panentheistic worldview is not an intellectual construct but a deeply resonant, universally accessible truth, as if it was by design planned by a higher intelligence. It speaks to an inherent human capacity to perceive the interconnectedness of all things and the pervasive presence of the divine within and beyond the cosmos, a fundamental truth waiting to be discovered and articulated in various cultural languages. This widespread acceptance and intuitive understanding across such diverse traditions further solidifies the argument that panentheism offers a more accurate and satisfying model for comprehending the profound relationship between God and the universe.